After everyone in Midwich blacks out, all women of childbearing age wake up pregnant. Detective Chief Inspector Paul is assigned to investigate the case but finds his pregnant wife, Deborah, dead in their home in Midwich. Psychiatrist Susanna is also tasked to support the mothers as they keep the strange phenomenon confidential. Despite the unusual circumstances, all women are strangely compelled to keep their pregnancies, including Susanna's daughter, Cassie. One of the women, Zoe, tries to skip town due to the pressure of her sudden pregnancy, but an odd force keeps her from boarding the train. Eventually, all mothers simultaneously give birth, and Midwich remains peaceful for 2 years. One morning, Zoe heads out to jog while her daughter, Hannah, and the government keep watch. Hannah then spots their neighbor's son, Joey, and together they establish a connection with another child in London, Sunny, who whispers that she's coming. Meanwhile, Paul plays hide-and-seek with his sister-in-law Jody and her son Nathan, who've moved into his home. During this, he hallucinates seeing Deborah. In just 2 years, the children are advanced enough to begin school. While Zoe's partner, Sam, conducts the school orientations, Bryony, an officer of the home office, observes the children. Susanna also arrives with Cassie and her daughter, Evie. Meanwhile, Amrita visits the house of her former lover, Stuart, whom she was with on the day of the blackout. She sees his daughter, Charlotte, before Stuart steps out. Amrita then reveals that her daughter, Sunny, insisted on coming. At school, Zoe thanks Susanna for helping her adjust to her feelings about her previous pregnancy. In contrast, Zoe notices that Cassie is a natural at being a mother. Suddenly, the lights flicker erratically as they did during the blackout. The children line up facing the window and the security feed glitches. When the children head outside, they find Charlotte walking with Sunny. Stuart's wife, Sarah, approaches her daughter, who tells her that Sunny's mother is talking privately with her father. As the children don Sunny with the school uniform, a dog barks at them. The dog suddenly breaks free and growls at the children, but it whimpers when they stare down at it. While Paul notifies Bryony about the development, Zoe takes Hannah away despite the children looking menacingly at her. Sunny's sudden appearance prompts Susanna to visit Amrita, confirming that she was with Stuart during the blackout while his wife was out of town. This exposes their secret relationship. At headquarters, Bryony and Paul discover that Amrita was Stuart's campaign consultant. Given that she also got pregnant during the blackout, they decide not to let her leave. At home, Zoe asks how Hannah knew Sunny, so the girl reveals that they've always known her. This startles her mother. Meanwhile, Susanna learns that Stuart was sending money to Amrita while she raised Sunny alone. Given that Sunny is growing quicker like the other children, Susanna concludes that she's also a child of the blackout instead of Stuart's. During this, Cassie watches over Sunny and Evie outside. When she takes a photo of them, the girls get startled by a plane in the sky. Paul arrives, asking Amrita to stay in Midwich so they can test Sunny, but she refuses. However, Sunny wants to stay to meet the others, and she begins enumerating the other children's names, spooking the adults. To investigate this phenomenon, Susanna conducts an experiment in Ward 300, a secure hospital facility. She tasks a child to choose an image that the others must guess. In all test runs, the children show that they know what each is thinking. Outside, the mothers gossip about Amrita and Stuart. Zoe heads out for some air when she sees Amrita in another room. Despite it being a restricted area, Zoe sneaks in to speak with her. The two mothers click immediately, and Amrita confesses that Sunny has a hold over her like a spell. Empathizing with her, Zoe warns that they're paid to stay at Midwich and are isolated from the world. Hearing this, Amrita shares that a doctor also visited her and talked to Sunny for an hour. Because they can't talk for long, Zoe and Amrita exchange numbers. Before leaving, Zoe advises her to leave while she can. On the way out, she overhears Susanna suspecting that the children have a hive mind. As the mothers leave with their kids, Susanna stays behind to look after Amrita. Knowing that her mother is hiding something, Cassie presses for information, so Susanna hints that there's some secret communication between the children. Later, as Zoe and Hannah walk, the girl smirks at a dead dog recovered from the creek. It's the same dog from the school, making Zoe eye her daughter suspiciously. Meanwhile, Cassie's bothered by what she learned, so she approaches Evie. Her daughter casually confirms that she can hear her friend's thoughts, but she was worried that this might scare her mother. Cassie embraces her daughter, assuring her that she's not scared of her. However, Cassie doesn't notice that Evie was drawing the dead dog. When Paul watches Nathan's earlier performance, Bryony teases him about being fond of the boy and his mother. Bryony then sees the footage from Amrita's room earlier, showing how she talked to Zoe. At their home, Sam and Zoe argue about how Hannah reacted to the dead dog. Sam thinks the dog died in an accident, but his partner brings up how Susanna believes that the children have a hive mind, which scares her. Hannah walks in, so Zoe leaves. The girl then hugs Sam and mutters that her mother doesn't love her anymore. Sam tries convincing her otherwise, but she puts him in a trance and says that only he loves her. When he arrives home, Paul is distant. Sensing something's amiss, Jody tells her son to play hide-and-seek with friends. However, Nathan insists the game won't work with his friends. To prove his point, Nathan tells Paul to reveal what he knows. Meanwhile, Sam's next-door neighbor, Curtis, brings up Amrita, complaining about how the government didn't find Sunny sooner. When Sam talks about the other children, Curtis reveals that he's just using his wife's blackout son, Joe, Joe to get money from the government. The only son Curtis considers is his biological kid, David. In the kitchen, Zoe calls Hannah, but the girl suddenly declares that they didn't hurt the dog. Suddenly, Zoe loses control of her body and places her hand over the boiling water. Once her mother is hurt, Hannah releases her and repeats more forcefully that they didn't hurt the dog. When Sam arrives, Hannah pretends to be confused, while Zoe realizes that her daughter is up to no good. During this, Susanna drives Amrita to their hotel and asks her to give the project a chance. Inside, they find Sarah waiting, so Susanna brings Sunny aside for a drink to let the women talk. She asks how long Sunny's known the rest of the children, and the girl claims she's always known them but only decided to return to Midwich now. When Susanna checks in on Amrita and Sarah's heated exchange, Sunny runs off. Amrita leaves to look for her, but Susanna finds the girl beside Sarah, asking for a hug. Lights flicker overhead as Sunny whispers "mommy" to the woman. Amrita spots this and gets angry, taking Sunny with her. At Paul's home, Jody asks when he'll reveal what he knows about the kids. When he doesn't share, she threatens to move out. She points out that he cares about Nathan, but if he doesn't trust her, then there's no point in them staying there. She suspects that he wouldn't have hidden anything from Deborah, sparking a heated exchange that only ends when Nathan arrives. He calls Paul his daddy, surprising the two. Susanna arrives home and finds her family playing with Cassie's friend, Nora, and her daughter, Olive. Noticing her, Cassie approaches Susanna to say the children's abilities don't have to be a dirty secret. Afterward, Susanna receives a text from Zoe asking to visit. At the hotel, Amrita packs her bags quietly while Sunny is asleep. Around Midwich, the rest of the children also head to bed. When she finishes, she wakes Sunny to head home. Although against Sunny's will, Amrita takes her, prompting all the children to wake. In Susanna's office, Zoe recounts the earlier incident and breaks down at how Hannah wanted to hurt her since she considers her a threat. Zoe notices that everything changed because of Sunny and admits that she doesn't trust the children. Susanna tries pacifying her thoughts, but this comes across as disbelief. As Zoe leaves, she tells Susanna she won't understand until she sees it herself. Meanwhile, Amrita walks through the parking area when the lights flicker. Still, she leaves a voicemail for Zoe, telling her that she's leaving. All over Midwich, the children stand still as static cackles in the air, which Susanna and Paul notice. Reaching their car, Amrita urges her daughter to get in when suddenly, car alarms blare as Sunny's eyes glow. When Zoe returns home, she finds Bryony, who knows she snuck into the restricted area. She asks if there's anything the government should know, and when Zoe hesitates, Bryony reminds her about Amrita's delicate situation. After the officer leaves, Sam questions why Zoe didn't tell him about her meeting with Amrita. However, she argues that he never wanted to know anyway. Later, Charlotte wakes up and finds Sunny outside. Susanna soon arrives at their home and learns that Amrita dropped Sunny off and left. No one can contact Amrita, so Susanna decides to take her. However, Sunny insists on staying with Sarah. Just then, Paul calls Susanna. At the hotel parking lot, they find Amrita's car still open with her shoe inside. Meanwhile, Zoe listens to Amrita's voicemail. She then peeks into Hannah's room and finds her daughter awake, shushing her. Days later, Sunny joins the other children in their school activities. Meanwhile, Paul watches the recording where Sunny claimed that Amrita left her. They also find that the security footage at the hotel's parking lot glitched for 6 hours and there are no signs of Amrita's whereabouts. Even Sunny's ride to Sarah's house wasn't caught on camera. To not raise suspicions, Bryony directs Paul to keep this a secret. During this, Susanna reveals their theory about the hive mind to the mothers, drawing mixed reactions. Cassie encourages them to accept it as an evolutionary step forward, insisting that if the children operate as one, the mothers should too. Seeking support, Curtis's wife, Rachel, responds that her husband hates her son, Joe. Adding to the absurdity, Sarah shares how Sunny now sees her as her mother. When the session ends, Susanna compliments Cassie's composure, though she's still bothered by Amrita's disappearance. However, Cassie thinks Amrita abandoned her daughter. Susanna also notes that Zoe didn't attend the meeting. That night, Zoe finds Hannah asleep beside Sam, complaining that she's had nightmares ever since Sunny arrived. When Sam asks about the meeting, Zoe claims that she forgot to attend. He insists it might be helpful, but Zoe argues that she's not like the other mothers. When Paul arrives home, Jody asks about Amrita. He deflects and asks if she's already looking for a place. When she says no, he gets vulnerable and asks her to stay. Elsewhere, Susanna notices Evie having a nightmare, so she puts a hand over her forehead. Suddenly, she glimpses a winter landscape and a hand against the door. The vision startles her. The next day, Paul reviews the hotel parking lot footage from before and after the glitch and realizes that the vans near Amrita's car were different. After a hotel receptionist informs him where the missing van came from, he drives to the warehouse and discovers that the vehicle is broken. Meanwhile, Susanna sifts through Evie's stuff when she finds her drawings, including one with Amrita. At the same time, Paul finds Amrita's frozen body inside the vehicle. When he reports it later, he and Bryony are confused as to how the van remained that cold despite the wiring being shorted, essentially trapping Amrita inside. Their superior, Bernard, tells them to make a cover-up. but Paul insists that he can't ignore a mother's death. However, Bernard argues that they've kept peace with the families for 2 years and can't risk breaking that over one incident. While waiting for their fathers, Nathan and Joe play on the swings at school. Curtis arrives and forces Joe off the swing so David can play. Angry, Nathan and Joe manipulate the swing, hitting Curtis and flinging David forcefully. Meanwhile, Susanna visits Zoe to continue their previous conversation, but the woman refuses as she didn't get enough sleep thanks to Hannah occupying their bed. When Hannah shows up, Susanna asks if she's had nightmares, but she lies that she hasn't. Suddenly, Curtis arrives with a bloody David and blames Joe despite Sam's insisting that it was an accident. Susanna approaches and asks to talk to Joe about it, but Curtis insists on dealing with it alone. That night, Zoe plays Amrita's voicemail to Sam and thinks it's weird she's abandoned Sunny when she wanted to leave with her daughter. Then, Hannah arrives to sleep in their bed again, but Zoe evicts her for lying about having nightmares. After Zoe tucks her in bed, Hannah follows and telepathically bangs her mother's head against the wall. Sam emerges but doesn't believe his partner's claim that Hannah made her hurt herself. In private, Sam reminds Zoe that they agreed to have the child since she couldn't get pregnant before. However, Zoe confesses that she doesn't love Hannah. This shocks Sam, so he leaves. The next morning, Cassie tells her mother that Evie had another nightmare. When she leaves, Susanna moves to touch Evie's forehead but her hand freezes, forcing her to pull away. Meanwhile, Sam learns that Curtis won't let Joe go to school as punishment. Hearing this, Hannah scratches Curtis's car so he yells at her. During this, Zoe hurries to the train station and dreads being unable to board it like when she was pregnant. When she makes it inside, she feels a deep sense of relief. Later, Susanna asks Sam to get a psych report regarding the swing incident. Although the children are sleeping, she insists on waking Nathan. Getting Nathan alone, Susanna asks if he hurt David because Curtis made him angry. The kid doesn't respond, but the lights around them flicker. She changes her question and asks if he'd hurt her if she made him angry, and Nathan admits he doesn't want to. Susanna then asks about Amrita and the children's nightmares. Nathan cracks and confesses that it's all Amrita's fault. When Susanna asks further, the others wake up and pound angrily outside the window while Nathan screams. Sam hurries inside and Nathan blames Susanna while the other kids point at her. Meanwhile, Zoe arrives in London and leaves a voicemail from Rita. She then meets with Jamie, an old friend, and she breaks down, confessing that she's going insane and that Hannah isn't her kid. As Paul and Bryony interrogate Susanna about the incident with Nathan, she reveals the recurrent dream the children have been having since Sunny's arrival. The children's erratic behavior might be because they're scared of something, which might be related to Amrita. In their silence, Susanna detects her hiding something, but Bryony brings up the psychiatrist's past tendency to see malign intentions in children. Susanna gets defensive but shuts up when Bryony asks if Cassie knows her past. Meanwhile, Zoe reveals everything to Jamie but begs him to keep it a secret. Seeing her freaking out, he embraces her and they end up kissing. Suddenly, Zoe feels dread and realizes the children want Sam, so they let her leave. As Zoe abandons Jamie, Bernard watches her from a distance. When Susanna arrives home, Cassie confronts her about the school incident because Evie went home crying, forcing her to cancel her plans and stay home. Guilty, Susanna encourages her to go while she looks after Evie. Sam sits at home, calling Zoe when Hannah stares at him, upset. She asks why he let Curtis yell at her, prompting Sam to go outside and march up to the neighbor. When Curtis remarks that Hannah isn't his kid, Sam demands he take it back. However, Curtis pummels him to the ground until his fists suddenly freeze as Hannah watches. This allows Sam to regain the upper hand. With Curtis down, Sam stands covered in blood and sees Hannah smirking. Elsewhere, Paul returns home to Jody, confronting him about Susanna frightening Nathan. She senses that he's lying about something, so she demands to know what. He ignores her and heads upstairs to Nathan. Locking the door, he asks Nathan what happened to Amrita, adding that if the boy loves him, he'll tell the truth. He's relieved to hear that the children did nothing, but when he hugs Nathan, the boy's expression is blank. At Susanna's home, Evie invites her grandmother for a walk, promising to tell her about their dreams. While walking through the woods, Evie asks to play hide and seek before she reveals her dreams. Susanna relents, so the girl goes to hide. However, when Susanna goes to where she last spotted Evie, she's gone. Meanwhile, Nathan tells Paul that Evie's worried her grandmother might hurt her. In a rush, Paul drives to their home and finds Cassie, who tells him that Susanna and Evie went for a walk. Susanna searches the woods while hearing accusatory whispers in her mind. Evie taunts her around the forest and leads her to the train tracks. When Susanna finds her, Evie accuses her of wanting the children to die. Evie runs into the railway just as the train arrives, forcing Susanna to chase her. Paul and Cassie arrive, so Evie runs to them, lying that Susanna wanted to hurt her. Angry, Cassie claims that Paul told her what happened at the school, so she decides that her mother isn't safe to live with. Zoe soon arrives home and finds Sam banged up. He confesses that Hannah made him fight Curtis, so he now wants to escape. Zoe assures him they'll get out together. Later, Susanna watches Cassie leave with Bryony and Paul. When Paul heads home, he apologizes to Jody and finally kisses her. As the small peace in their town finally crumbles, Susanna sits by the stairs, defeated.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. turn on notifications, and leave a like. It really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.